All right, hello everyone. Counter wasn't looking like it wanted to work, so I may as well just jump into it today. How's everyone doing today? Happy Saturday. We made it. Oh, maybe I should pull this up just a little bit so it doesn't get too close to the captions. Okay. Got a lot of stuff to cover today. We've got some COVID stuff. Then we'll do some environmental stuff, and then I think we're going to do some miscellaneous stuff, and then we'll get into some future tech sort of things. So, yeah, good stuff coming up. What's happening with me? Not a lot. We went to Thanksgiving with my parents. My sister and her whole family came down. That was always fun. My sister makes the best White Russians, blind Russians. And my mother bought enough alcohol for, just to make sure we had stuff to make drinks. And she had this peppermint liqueur. And I had my sister make me a blind Russian with peppermint liqueur. Oh my God, dude. It was so good. So good. It really helps to mute like the flavor of all that alcohol in the drink. Oh, I could just drink that all day. Wouldn't want to. It would wreck me, but it's really, really tasty. So yeah, I spent time with my family. That was nice. And spent the Friday recovering. Yeah, Friday, I spent some time working on just updating some of my draft blog posts. And I also started a brand new blog post for the myth of the low skill worker. The primary drive for that is in my post, the capitalism resource-based economy Q&A from December 2020. I used the phrase low skill worker there and something I'm talking about, and then I didn't like it. I didn't like it because I didn't have the time there to do the research, so I just left it in, and I just 2 days ago added in a note saying, hey, I don't like this phrasing, but once I find a new one, I'll go ahead and change it. So I started doing the research yesterday to write a post on that very thing, the myth of the low-wage worker. So yeah, I think my last count is in drafts, I have 84 blog posts sitting in various states of draft. I'm adding new stuff every few weeks. Well, probably every few months, actually. New posts probably every few months on a topic I want to research and learn more about, and then eventually publish. So, in addition to the other stuff I'm researching and writing about too. So, yeah. What else? So, Disturbed's new album dropped, Divisive, which is pretty good. What else? Not so much. I think we're probably going to be playing D&D tomorrow, Dungeons and Dragons, which I'm very happy for. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's all that's been happening with me over this last week. How about you guys? Anything crazy happening with you, especially over the holidays? The holiday. So, we'll start with this. Saw this yesterday. Such a great tweet. One of the problems is that slavery is taught as the history of black people and not the history of white people. I mean, that's perfect. That is exactly the way it should be. It's the history of white people. It's history of capitalism and the systemic and structural racism that is inherent to capitalism should be taught about, at least from the standpoint of U.S. history and European history. It should be that way. Now, in the dawn of everything that I read last week, yeah, they go into slavery and slavery has existed in every single culture for the most part all around the world. So it's a thing, but it's primarily we're talking about, of course, Europeans and white history. This needs to be taught as something that we did to Africans and others, and brought them to the New World and stuff like that. So yeah, this is great. This is powerful. I love it. All right. Any questions, comments on that? We're gonna move on to some COVID stuff. Haven't covered COVID stuff in a while. That. My backspace key. Curly Bear, how you doing? Welcome, welcome. It was good. Got to spend time with my family, got to see them. My sister makes the best like white Russians and blind Russians, and we had some peppermint liqueur. So I tried a blind Russian with peppermint liqueur. Is amazing. The best drink ever. I love it. Love it. I like it. I love it. Yeah, I only had 2. So that was probably pretty good. Yeah, it was good. My sister and her family was there. Got to meet my sister's husband's son's girlfriend for the first time. So that's the first time she was subjected to our family. And yeah, we ate food. I was so full. Saturday was rough, just trying to recover. But it was good. Got to see everyone. It's always a good time to see all them. Because my sister's a bartender, my nephew's a bartender, nephew's wife is a bartender, so drinks are plentiful and well made. Didn't get drunk, which is good. What did I have? I had 2 hard apple ciders, I think they are, and then yeah, 2 of the blind Russians with peppermint liqueur in it, and then Mountain Dew. That's pretty much it. Drink. Yeah, right. Yes, exactly. It was great. We was at my mother's house. My mother's house is fairly well. It's small for the group of people that we have there, but it worked okay. Mother likes entertaining. A lot of times we'll go up to my sister's house, and they have a nice big house where there's plenty of room for us. But they were like, every so often they'll bring it down here so that Nana, my mom, can feed everyone and host and stuff like that. She really enjoys that. So yeah, it was good. It was very good. How about you? How was your Thanksgiving? Full of children and babies and stuff? Nice relaxing holiday. Usually I cook for some friends, but this year I went to our son's. Oh, okay, cool. Good. Good. Nice and relaxing. That's cool. Yeah, it's nice when you can just show up and be fed. I've always enjoyed that part of Thanksgiving, just showing up to someone's house and then amazing food there to eat. It's a good deal. Good deal. Yeah, I wouldn't mind hosting it myself. No 5 hours in the kitchen. Yeah, exactly. My mother spent 3 days preparing stuff. She had a lot of stuff. Yeah, 3 days of cooking, and then we spend probably that hour eating, and that's it. And it's gone. But she had a lot of leftovers. We don't typically take stuff because I'm trying to. I started trying to watch my girlish figure again. So hopefully I can get back on the paleo AIP train, and get my weight off again. Daughter-in-law cooked. Nice. Oh, first holiday in their house. Very nice. Cool. Hopefully you can make that a tradition. How well did she do? What is the mother's appraisal? Super good. Nice. What was your favorite dish? Yummy. Nice. Good. Good to hear. My mother makes cheesy potatoes, which is all of our favorite. It's just amazing. Like, eat just that. But fortunately, there was other stuff. Her dad did a deep fried turkey, and her mac and cheese was awesome. Ah, okay. Yeah, I've had. I think a few years ago, my sister and family made the fried turkey, which is pretty good. Yeah, mac and cheese, if it's done right, then that's very hard to do well. Oh, so good. So very good. So very bad for you, but so very good. Was it the sort of mac and cheese that had sometimes they'll put bacon in it or something like that? Or was it just the mac and cheese? Or they'll put breading on top or something like that? Any extra sprinklings on it? Just cream cheese? Okay, cool. Nice. Very good. Very good for her. Because, yeah, working with that cheese is difficult to work with, especially in that amount. Good for her. It definitely shows that she knows what she's doing if she can do creamy macaroni and cheese well. Nice. Good. I'm glad it was great for you. Awesome. Good to hear. Good to hear. Okay. Is there I've got some COVID stuff. Then we have some climate stuff. And then some miscellaneous capitalism stuff, and then some high tech, future tech sort of stuff. If we get to it. Do you have any questions or comments or anything you want to go over before we get started? I don't have the COP27 thing yet. No? Okay. So at some point, probably next week, I'll have that prepared. Going over COP27, the Sharm el Sheikh agreement or whatever it is, so we can take a look at that. Because that's going to be, well, disappointing, but good to review. All right. So the first thing we have here, this is from today. You dirty rats. Researchers find COVID-19 in New York City sewer rodents. This, well, yeah, that's to be expected. I mean, it's really to be expected because it's in, we go to the bathroom, we flush some of flush that stuff, and of course, these guys are in the sewers, and then they're subjected to it significantly. Bastard face. Okay. All right. New Yorkers may have a new reason to loathe rats. Researchers investigating mysterious COVID-19 mutations found signs of the virus in the city's massive rat population, sparking concerns the disease could jump from the vermin to humans. Of course it can. It's never going to end now. Congratulations, America. You suck. A new study by scientists at the University of Missouri and the USDA identified the virus in New York City rats and also found that some species of the notoriously disease-riddled animals are susceptible to the Alpha, Delta, and Omicron variants of COVID-19. Oh, that's pleasant. Whole fucking kitten disease caboodle. We were concerned that there was a possibility that we were going to find a spillover event, knowing that COVID-19 had been detected in some other animal species. Dr. Juliana Lenoke, National Coordinator of the USDA APHIS Center and co-author of the paper, told the Post. Over the last 2.5 years, we found the virus moved from humans to new animal populations, Lenoke said, pointing to the white-tailed deer and minks. There was also, I think it was in bears in a zoo and also in tigers in a zoo as well. Yeah, it's a very large species jumping disease, which is just awesome. Oh, look at the little disease-ridden bastards. Oh, look at them. Ugh. Let's see. Lenoke and her team captured and tested nearly 80 Norwegian rats in Brooklyn and found that just over 16% of them had antibodies, indicating that. Okay, guys, come on, editing. These last few weeks, I found articles that had editing issues. Okay. That just over 16% of them had antibodies, indicating that they were exposed to the virus. Scientists also used PCR tests on the lungs of the rats they captured, and just over 5% tested positive for the virus, although they were unable to find evidence that the species could transmit COVID-19. Well, okay. The team found that another rodent species commonly used for research purposes, Sprague Dawley rats, are able to be infected by, get back over here, by the Alpha, Delta, Omicron variants of COVID-19, highlighting the potential for transmission. The paper looking at COVID-19 in rats, published online Monday, has not yet been peer-reviewed. It was an attempt to identify the origins of a series of mysterious, never-before-seen COVID-19 mutations found in the city's wastewater last year by researchers at the University of Missouri in CUNY's, that's something New York, Central University, New York? I don't know. CUNY's, Queens, and Queensborough colleges. Along with the virus mutations, scientists also found rat DNA in the samples they were studying, which prompted Lenoke and her colleagues to look at the city's rodent population as a possible source. Under the rat. While the origins of the cryptic COVID-19 mutations in New York City's sewers remain a mystery, scientists studied the coronavirus in wastewater have made recent advancements in their ability to trace such variations. In Wisconsin, what? Researchers were able to trace an enigmatic mutation found in the city's wastewater back to a single building with 6 restrooms, according to a paper published in October 31st. I had not heard about that. Check this really quick. Say what city? Water. Pure and wastewater clinical samples, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Can't see which city. In their paper, Lenoke and her colleagues called for more research to be done on New York's pesky rat population, which drew the ire of Mayor Eric Adams last week as he signed a bill forcing landlords to use heavy-duty trash bins to reduce infestations. Rat sightings have jumped 70% this year compared to 2 years ago, according to Fox 5. The rat calls we usually get were usually in lower income zones, of course. Timothy Wong, lead technician at Pest Control company MMPC, said. Now it's distributed throughout the entire city. Oh, Upper East Side, Upper West Side, Madison Avenue, Park Slope. It's everywhere now, and I think it's much more distributed than it's ever been. So what's happening in the sewers then that's driving them up here? I think that's probably what they need to look at. All right, so there's that. Some good news. All right, next one. How can the world prepare for the next pandemic? This is Scientific American from the 15th. COVID pandemic is not over, even though a lot of people think it is. The countries must start to prepare for the next one to avoid a similar or even worse outcome. So this is, I mean, they're right, but it's just not going to happen. No one in the government gives a flying fuck about anyone but the economy. The Benjamins are the only thing that matters. Some of you may die in order to maintain the economy, but that's a risk that they're willing to take. All right, COVID-19 pandemic is not over, and already its cost is staggering. The disease could have contributed to around 17 million deaths, and by 2024, the hit to the global economy could reach US 12.5 trillion. Everyone has experienced an extraordinary few years that few people would want to repeat. If the world is to avoid a similar or even worse event in the future, countries must ensure that they are better prepared to deal with pandemics. But listen, so this isn't about countries. It's not about countries. It's about the systemic and structural racism inherent to capitalism. The fact that the United States didn't open source the vaccines and distribute them to the global south en masse is a large part of the problem. The fact that our government didn't lock down, wash hands, social distance, isolate, all that sort of stuff for like 2 to 3 weeks is part of the problem. The United States didn't do jack shit about it. They didn't test people coming in. They didn't isolate people coming in like a lot of other countries have done, which is a great way that they have done to help control it. Although, of course, the United States, it's a lot more difficult because we got a much larger area to protect. So, Rich, how you doing? Welcome. How you doing today? Talking about COVID. Starting off with COVID, then we'll get into some climate stuff, and then some general capitalism stuff, and then some future tech stuff. We're on our second article. First one here is about rats in New York City having COVID, and the rats in New York City are coming up more. So far, so good. Daytime drinking. Okay, what are you drinking? Hopefully something good. Especially starting this early, depending on where you're at. My sister makes the best blind Russians ever. And at Thanksgiving, we had peppermint liqueur brandy. Ah, okay. That's pretty good. Cool. And so I had a blind Russian with peppermint liqueur. It was really good. But that's gone now. Down to vodka. Oh, I don't mind vodka and shots, but just drinking it, straight consistently isn't going to be so interesting. Do you have like orange juice to mix it with or something? Something to take the bite off it? Do you have good vodka at least? That, like, Grey Goose is pretty smooth for vodka. My parents buy this super cheap, like, vodka in plastic bottles. It's horrific, and you can tell that it's horrible. It's just so bad. Like, how can you drink this? Moskovskaya. It's okay. I have not heard of it. Obviously Russian, or at least Russian named. Oh, I gotta do green. Like green. Okay, is it from Russia? That's the next question. Oh, it's Latvia. In Latvia. Oh, okay. Yeah. All right, cool. For that price, amazing. Cool. When I was in Belarus, I got to try some Polish potato vodka. I think it was. It was really bad. It was really bad. It was a gift to a friend that I was staying with's father, and he deals with construction, so he had a gift from a Polish company in this vodka. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. Ugh. Vodka can definitely be good. It can definitely be horrible. Well, I'm glad you got some okay vodka at least. Cool. All right. So yeah, we just start this. Hey, wait, I'll start at the beginning. Oh, I am at the beginning, so I'll start over again. So yeah, so we're in this one talking about how the world can prepare for the next pandemic. Vodka Red Bull. Oh my God. I haven't really tried that. I've had vodka and Mountain Dew though, which is pretty good. At least the way my sister and my nephew and my nephew's wife are all bartenders, and they've gave me that once, and it was really good. I haven't done the Red Bull thing, although it sounds interesting though. You got the energy drink, and then you've got the vodka, which is a depressant, so those kind of balance keep things out, and then the vodka gives it kind of a bite to it too. So that sounds pretty cool. Pretty cool. Do you get tired off that at all? So I know Mountain Dew is illegal here. I know, right? There's so much sugar in it. I lost 20 pounds, and over the past few months, I put it all back on, mostly because of Mountain Dew. Vodka and Sprite? Okay, that's pretty good. Yeah, Sprite is really sugary. That'll help take the edge right off that. That's cool. It's at least the US version. Where are you at? Now it's vodka and root beer. Oh, that doesn't sound good. Thing freaking out. Headphones are freaking out. Oh, Germany. Yeah, the European versions are different. It's really good. I'll have to try that. Like I tried some Mountain Dew in Belarus, because my wife is from Belarus. We were visiting there, and it's not the same. It's really different. And it's just like, no, how could you destroy it? Maybe when I go to my parents' house the next time, I'll get some root beer and I'll give that a try. So what? Did you guys hear something, or is it just me? Sounds like there's noise coming in. Where's the noise coming? My headphones died. That's why. My headphones have a penchant for dying. I don't like it because they're expensive as hell. That's okay. I don't need it. A&W. Oh, okay. I've liked Barks. Barks is really good. A&W for me is okay. All right, so I'll do A&W. So you just like one can and then one shot? What's your balance? I think the sugar is the main problem. Mountain Dew. Yep. Yeah, it's high fructose corn syrup. Yeah, it's horrific. Yeah, it's like a third of Mountain Dew is sugar. It's just a shitload of sugar. It's just amazing. But it's so good. It's so tasty. I love it. That is one of my weaknesses. Mountain Dew. It is the nectar of the gods. So Mountain Dew and then peanut butter cups. Big weaknesses. And ice cream. Yeah, ice cream. And eclairs. Cheesecake. I do a tall glass, pour till count of 5. Then root beer. That's about 5 shots. Because I think each second will be a shot. Depending on how much root beer you put in, well, it should be fine. Well, they call it that good old Mountain Dew, and then that refuse it are few. I'll hush up my mug if you fill up my jug with what's good old Mountain Dew. Oh, that's cool. Good old Mountain Dew, then they review. Very nice. You come up with that yourself there, Elias? How you doing, man? Good to see you. Oh, it's an old ad? I've never heard that. Is there a video for it? Oh, 60s or 70s? Oh, that is pretty old. Okay. Interesting. So which is your cocktail for the night? Is it the mountain? Is it the root beer and vodka? I changed. What did I change? What have I done? Tall glass. Ah, gotcha. Nice. Okay. 5-second count for vodka, and then fill it up to the top. Now we're talking. Okay, tall glass. Okay, yeah, that's important because if it was a mug, it would be a little too much fun. All right, tall glass. That's not too bad. I mean, yeah, that sounds interesting. I'll definitely give it a try when we go over there next. I have to remember that. Let me write this down. Vodka and root beer. 5-second count. Then fill all last top. All right, groovy. Okay. I'll see. I'll see what the 5-second count gives me. I think 5 seconds on a tall glass will be okay, depending on what the flow rate is. That's 5 shots, but you got the That's probably gonna take a little more than a can, possibly. Fill it to the top. I don't know. We'll see. I'll buy at least 2 cans before I go over, just to make sure I've got enough. And we'll see what sort of tall glasses they have. I'll let you know how good the party was. I had this one time. I was gaming with the guys who were over at my friend Jordan's house, where we were playing consistently. I have 2 fingers vodka in a glass, and then fill up. Oh, okay. That's about 2 shots, right? Maybe a little more than 1 shot. I've never really done a lot of any mixing at home, frankly. I don't really. I'm a social drinker, so I don't actually drink unless I'm with other people. And I'm an introvert, so I don't really drink at all. Only when I'm with my parents and my family and stuff like that. That's it. Makes me want to get into it more. Oh, but the issue I have with alcohol is it really fucks up my circadian rhythm, so I can't sleep properly. Actually, yesterday I had this hot chocolate with it's Bailey's s'mores. I usually use 2 packets of hot chocolate. Yeah, I know. Yeah, and that's I've been fine with it because I'm an introvert. It's all right, but yeah, it would be nice to be a little bit more social. If you can't sleep well after alcohol, you're not drinking enough. That is true. Yeah, if you can't sleep well after drinking alcohol, you're not drinking it properly. That's right. Bailey's makes you hungover. Oh, Bailey's is so yummy. Oh my god. So yeah, I had hot chocolate, two packets of hot chocolate with kind of a big mug, and then 2 shots of the Bailey's s'mores. It was pretty good. I prefer at one of our local stores. We have this. They have an organic hot chocolate, but I can never find it there. But it is the best hot chocolate I've ever tasted. So I was doing, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. That plus, what was I doing? Oh, that plus Bailey's. It was amazing. Amazing. It's so tasty, but it's so bad for you. It's so good. So yeah, I did that for a little while, for that one winter, but then I stopped doing it because I can't find the hot chocolate, and also it's, yeah, not so good for you. But I've got hot chocolate now. I've got like 2 or 3 more servings worth of hot chocolate in the Bailey's, and then I'll finish it and I'll be good to go. Yeah, so I had the Bailey's and hot chocolate yesterday, and I'm on new medication for sleeping. It's Grandma's Cure for a Common Cold. Heat a bottle of strong beer. Go to bed and empty. In 1 zip. Oh my god. Well, I mean, there is the concept that, of course, alcohol is it's antiseptic, it's antibacterial and stuff like that. So sure. Yeah, I've heard others like it's like butter and vodka, or something like that. Help you feel better. Yeah, trazodone. That's what I'm on. I just started taking trazodone this week, and I started with 2 pills, and that was too much. And then 1 pill. I slept okay the first night, but last night, because I had the Bailey's, it kind of wrecked things for me. So we'll see what happens tonight. Hopefully I'll sleep okay. Cause one of the reasons why I'm behind today, because I didn't sleep well last night. But I'm doing okay. Doing okay. It's warm up here. Which is good. Okay. Let's get into this article on how the world can prepare for the next pandemic so we can bitch about how fucked we are because of the United States. It's trazodone. It's my first week taking it. Trazodone. Gotcha. Yeah, looks like this. A big pill like this. It's nighttime sleep aid. I think they also, for depression, anxiety as well. I can give you headaches or dry mouth or something like that. For me, if I have two, it gives me, I don't know if it's a headache, but a headache of sorts. The one seems to be just fine. Although doesn't seem to be powerful enough to necessarily keep me sleeping if I'm taking alcohol or something like that. So we'll see. I have to kind of hone it in and see how well, what the parameters are for how it works for me, and then I'll know what to expect. It is prescription required. Oh, alcohol interactions can occur. Yeah, I should look at that. I'll have to look at that. Yeah, I was taking mirtazapine. That was originally a brain dude. Which, an antidepressant, no, what does mine look like? Like that. It's just white. Like this. But it acts as an interference between my brain and my sense of touch. I was taking it originally because I had this pulsing in my head from the top to the front. Ermazepam. Okay. How well does it work for you? Okay. Yeah, I was having pulsing from the top of the head and my front of my head, and I was just wrecked because I could not sleep. I had 1 3-day period, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, where I got 5 hours of sleep. And that Sunday, that last day, I got 0 hours sleep. Yeah. And the neurologist, that's what they're called, neurologist gave me mirtazapine, and that acts as an interference between my brain and my sense of feeling. And that seemed to do the job. I went 2 weeks without taking anything. Without taking the mirtazapine, and I was just fine. The pulsing wasn't there. I didn't sleep well, but the pulsing wasn't there, which is good. So hopefully I'm beyond the pulsing issue. Now it's just a matter of getting my sleeping somehow restored back to normal. I'd like to sleep normal again and start taking my CBD oil again. I could probably just start taking it again. Probably should, honestly, because I have a local dealer. But addictive as fuck? Oh, compared to Xanax in the US? Oh, okay. Yeah, be careful with that then. I know they're talking about some of the other ones, like Xanax, stuff like that, do have some level of addictiveness to them. So yeah, I started with this stuff, not this stuff, the other stuff. Then if that doesn't work, then the trazodone, then we'll move on to the other stuff if we need to. The oil, CBD oil. It's when I found CBD oil like years ago, 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. It was amazing. It's the first time I ever slept like a normal human being. But once I had the pulsing in my head thing, I stopped taking it just to clear everything out. And I don't know. I'll get some more. I think I'll get some soon and start taking it again because it really helps me sleep. It's amazing. Amazing. Okay, so let's see what this article has to say. All right, the COVID-19 pandemic is not over. Gummies are the best. I haven't tried the gummies. I've mostly done the oil. one of the ladies that I worked with previously, she has a license to make it and stuff like that. So I had a straight dealer, and it was full spectrum CBD oil, and it was awesome. But I haven't done the gummies yet. Mostly for sleep. For my vitamins and stuff, I use gummies because I can't swallow pills. Like, well, here's one right here. CoQ10. Got like three bottles of gummy vitamins here. Talking about medications, U.S. people are full on brand names. We are used to ingredients. We don't care what company. Yeah, and that's really the way it should be. And a lot of that issue comes from, of course, the pharmaceutical companies owning our government in a huge part, because it's about, the brand names making all the money because they give briberies to doctors to prescribe this sort of thing. They get kickbacks and stuff like that. Yeah, how much the pharmaceutical companies control the healthcare system, and the FDA. The FDA is the government body that approves medications and stuff like that. How much the FDA is the Federal Food and Drug Administration. The influence that the pharmaceutical companies have over that process is just not good. We honestly need to just nationalize the pharmaceutical industry and nationalize the healthcare industry, and then I think we'd be down to what you're talking about there. And that should be the way it is. It's not about who makes it. It is what it is, regardless of who makes it. One thing, we use brand name in aspirin and heroin, both by really. Oh God. Well, it's as long as you guys have safe injection sites. The FDA just approved the most expensive drug. It's which one? And it's not expensive because it's actually expensive. It's expensive because they're much money grant. Oh my fucking God! What is it? But if you go to a pharmacy and ask for aspirin, they usually give you a cheaper brand. Ah, okay. Is 3.5 million? Is that for cancer? It's got to be for cancer. Or is it COVID related? Yikes. Hemoglobin. Okay. Maybe it's for anemia? Now I gotta find out. Hemophilia. Okay. Yeah, hemophilia. Yeah, okay. Okay. I'll go and throw that in here in case anyone wants to take a look. That's fucking insane. There's no reason for anything to be that expensive. This is just fucking absurd. This is absurd. So fucking absurd. And there's no way. The rage. We'll go over this next. How about that? Because now I'm pissed. The royal disease. Don't black people get this? Hemophilia? No, it's anemia. It's anemia. That's what I was thinking, not hemophilia. Oh, so what's hemophilia? Anemia is low blood iron. Oh, hemophilia is when you bleed very easily, right? Is that right? All right. Am I right, chat? Need transfusions a lot? Why? That must be because they bleed really easily. That's what the hemophilia is. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And then we read that the article a few weeks ago. Did we read it? I don't know if we did or not. But they found a way of stripping out the RH and all that stuff from blood, and they can make blood into just O so that everyone can use it. That'll hopefully help this issue. Remember when AIDS first came out, a lot of those folks got infected? Oh, I don't remember that. Oh, that would fucking suck. Yeah, hemophilia in the 80s would be a death sentence. Jesus. Yikes. Queen Victoria of England was the most known carrier, and due to intermarriage and incest, most royal families had it. But okay. Okay. That makes sense. All right, let's actually. We haven't started this one, so let's go ahead and read this FDA bullshit. FDA. Okay, this is from 3 days ago. FDA approves $3.5 million treatment for hemophilia, now the most expensive drug in the world. U.S. Food and Drug Administration on Tuesday approved Hemgenix, a new drug to treat hemophilia. Manufacturer CSL Behring set the price at $3.5 million for treatment, making it the most expensive drug in the world. Hemgenix is it's a gene therapy. Treat adults with hemophilia B, a genetic bleeding disorder in which people do not produce protein needed to create blood clots. Yep. About 1 in 40,000 people have the disease, most of whom are men. Okay, so it's a little bit different because it's a gene therapy. Because that is much more expensive. I bet you that is going to have to be a custom gene therapy. So to get a copy of your genes and then customize the treatment for just you. Equals per dose. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. But even if it was custom, genetic work, that's still a lot. Well, that's the question. Hopefully we'll find out. Well, there's been gene therapy, for stuff, but it's super expensive. Like, I haven't really gotten it that much. It's around. There's various different types of it, but it is very expensive to do. I know that much. I'll assume it's treatment until you're fixed, but hopefully while we're reading this, it'll tell us what exactly that is. Hopefully it's for the full treatment. Typically, treatment requires routine intravenous infusions to maintain sufficient levels of missing or deficient clotting factor, but the new gene therapy is meant to be a one-time IV infusion. Okay. Holy fuck then. Okay. Gene therapy for hemophilia has been on the horizon for more than 2 decades. Despite advancements in the treatment of hemophilia, the prevention and treatment of bleeding episodes can adversely impact individuals' quality of life. Dr. Peter Marks, director of the FDA's Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research, said in a statement. Today's approval provides a new treatment option for patients. What patients? The rich ones, of course, with hemophilia B, and represents important progress in the development of innovative therapies for those experiencing a high burden of disease associated with this form of hemophilia. The Institute for Clinical and Economic Review, an independent nonprofit research organization that analyzes the value of prescription drugs and other medical products, confirmed for CNN that Hemgenix is now the most expensive drug in the world. In a recent cost-effectiveness analysis of the drug, weighing health benefits against the offset costs, ICER suggested that a fair price for the drug would be $2.9 and $2.96 million. Jesus Christ, what are you guys smoking? According to an analysis by GoodRx, the most expensive drug in the US was previously Zolgensma, which was approved by the FDA in 2019 to treat spinal muscular atrophy and priced at $2.1 million for a course of treatment. Okay, that's for the full treatment. FDA approved Hemgenix based on safety and effectiveness evaluated in 2 studies of about 60 men. Most common side effects included high liver enzymes, headaches, flu-like symptoms, and mild infusion-related reactions. Okay, so this one says... Okay, this is just the report. We don't want... .9, yep. Let's see, so you... Okay, so the cost... I'll go and throw this in here for you. To get my head around how gene therapy should work, sure we can extract DNA and alter genes, but how to change all the cells in the body? It would be easier to extract DNA, change the genes, and fertilize new egg with DNA to make. Yeah, I'm not sure myself. I know there's different ways, like CRISPR is one of those. One of the ways that they can do it. How does CRISPR work? Videos. All right, we'll take a look at this next. How about that? So we can learn about that. All right, the cost effectiveness modeling for these gene therapies shows health gains and potential for substantial cost offsets due to elimination of the need for very expensive prophylactic treatment. However, ICER has previously noted the ethical and practical concerns related to factoring in all the potential cost offsets over a lifetime when calculating. Yeah, this is stupid. Calculating health benefit price benchmark for potentially curative treatment. In the case of these two gene therapies, more than 99% of the traditional cost effectiveness value is generated by cost offsets of eliminating prophylactic treatment. That itself is widely considered to be far too expensive to be cost effective. Therefore, to calculate the HBPB for these gene therapies, we've applied our alternative cost effectiveness methodology that shares the savings from cost offsets. So, just the editing of samples, okay. So basically, they're pricing this based off how much money the person would save over their life by not having to do all this other stuff, which is a shitty ass way to price something. It's about shared savings. Under this shared savings scenario, cost offsets are limited to $150,000 per year. Yeah, this is fucked up. But yeah, this is the issue with it. It's how they price it. It shouldn't be 3.5 million. This is fucked up capitalist bullshit. Use my French. But you can use CRISPR to make changes to people.
In a document, if
I hear anything? Hello, turn on. Okay, there we go.
we suspect we've misspelled a word, we can use the find function to highlight the error and correct it or delete it. Within our DNA, that function is taken on by a system called CRISPR-Cas9. CRISPR is short for Clustered Regularly Interspaced Short Palindromic Repeats. CRISPR consists
There'll be a test at the end of this to make sure you know what this means.
of two components, the Cas9 protein that can cut DNA and a guide RNA that can recognize the sequence of DNA to be edited. To use CRISPR-Cas9, scientists first identify the sequence of the human genome that's causing a health problem. Then they create a specific guide RNA to recognize that particular stretch of A's, T's, G's, and C's in the DNA. The guide RNA is attached to the DNA cutting enzyme Cas9, and then this complex is introduced to the target cells. It locates the target letter sequence and cuts the DNA. At that point, scientists can then edit the existing genome by either modifying, deleting, or inserting new sequences. It effectively makes CRISPR-Cas9 a cut-and-paste tool for DNA editing. In the future, scientists hope to use CRISPR-Cas9 to develop critical advances in patient care or even cure lifelong inherited diseases.
There you go. That is the basics of CRISPR. So yeah, they can edit your genes through CRISPR and cure diseases and that sort of stuff. No, go away. Ooh, genetic engineering. Here's a Kurzgesagt video on CRISPR, which I have not seen. You guys want to watch this? Or do you want me to continue? Yeah, I haven't seen this yet. What you think? Whatever is fine. As far as pricing for medication, I'm still with the nationalize the pharmaceutical industry and just make it reasonable. I mean, even like if you're doing production cost plus 50%, how do you calculate that though? It may take several million to make a disease or make a disease, Jesus, make a medication and test it and all that sort of stuff. But then how do you cost that per thing? How do you get the item, per unit cost after all that? Is it based over like 10 years? Or, well, it's hard to figure out because it's just a matter of how much money do you want them to make off it versus how much do you want to make it out of reach for many people. So yeah, honestly, it needs to be nationalized pharmaceutical industry and then just sell it for the minimum that you can, period. That's just the way it should be because healthcare should be a human right. It should be free, universal healthcare. Somebody safe. Right, exactly. That's the other reason why it should effectively be the lowest, if not free, should be free. Yeah, all that stuff. Anything that is funded by the state or the government should, and the universities should be open source and available for the public to use. So yeah, that's exactly right. That's how I would do it. Nationalize the shit and open source it. Every single fucking bit of it. Okay. Well, I shared this with you. So if you guys want to watch it, you can watch that later. We've already watched one little video on that. So we'll move on from that. Any other questions or thoughts on this? This Yeah, this is stupid. This is beyond stupid. This is just money grubbing. This is a crime. A crime against humanity is what this is. Oh my god. Rage. Rage. All right. You guys ready to move on? Have you heard of that online pharmacy by I have. I have not checked it out. You take a break. Okay, man. Don't get too drunk. I have, but I have not looked into it. Mark Cuban's one of those kind of billionaires that is pretty interesting. He's a part of the patriotic billionaire club or something like that. So here, yeah, Mark Cuban. Hopefully, this is it. Yeah, I haven't looked at it beyond knowing that it exists. So there it is. If you guys want to take a look at it, this is cool. If it really does, it does change things for people, especially in this country, this will be a good thing. Can I search medications? As the bean. Remron, yep. $4.20 for 30. Wow. Retail price 35 at pharmacies. Yikes. That's insane. And what's trazodone? 480 for a 30 count, and you pay 15.30 at the thing. I think I paid $10 for this. But yeah, it's a significant savings here. Wow. I'd be curious to see what their how they vet these things. Yeah, so there it is. I'll keep that open over there. All right. Hopefully that ends up being as good as we're hoping it is, because it's something we here in the United States definitely need, until we can get a significant overthrow of the pharmaceutical industry in this country. All right. How can you prepare the world for the next pandemic? COVID pandemic is not over, but countries must start to prepare for the next one to avoid a similar or even worse outcome. I pretty much expect the next one in the next few years, and it's going to be just as shitty. Our response as a country is going to be just as shitty as it was previously. Because again, people in the people in Congress are more. Some of you may die to save the economy, but that is the risk that they are willing to take, because all that matters to them is the economy, regardless of how many people are going to die to keep it open. I don't expect any really big changes here in this country. All right, the COVID-19 pandemic is not over, and already its cost is staggering. The disease could have contributed to around 17 million deaths, and by 2024, the hit to the global economy could reach US $12.5 trillion. Everyone has experienced an extraordinary few years, and that few people would want to repeat. If the world is to avoid a similar or worse event in the future, countries must ensure that they are better prepared to deal with pandemics. Response to SARS-CoV-2 virus is far from perfect. Understatement of the year. High points such as the speed at which effective vaccines were developed contrast with low points such as the unequal distribution of those vaccines around the world. Yep. The pandemic can teach us many valuable lessons that, if acted on, will put the world in a much better position to respond to future threats. Now, see, the thing here is that we know exactly what we should have done. I mean, we know that open source the vaccines. Obama had a pretty good plan. Yeah, that's exactly right. He had the pandemic response unit, I think, is what he put together, and then his first few moments in office, Trump disbanded that, which was, I mean, it's so stupid, so stupid, so stupid. But yeah, Trump, Orange Man, bad. Many eyes on viruses that jump from animals to people. Most pandemics that jump from animals to people. Another one with look, editing issues. These past few weeks, I've seen so many editing issues. Come on, people. See, many eyes are on viruses that jump from animals to people. Period. Most pandemics in recent decades have emerged this way. I think they're called zoonotic diseases because they jump from the zoo, from animals. Machine learning could help to predict what the next pandemic causing pathogen will be or where it might first infect people. Climate modeling could also inform plans for infectious disease outbreaks. Yeah, because this is going to be a big deal, because the diseases from like Africa and Central and South America are going to start moving north because the environment is warmer and made much more suitable for them, so they can travel further north, start getting people sick. This is going to be huge. Such work will at most reduce the frequency of pandemics. When an outbreak inevitably strikes, healthcare professionals must have the tools and training to spot it and take action to limit its spread. Delaying transmission is crucial in fighting infectious diseases, which, as history tells us, are very difficult to eradicate after they have gone global. And we read about COVID-19 in the rats in the sewers, and they have some rat-specific strains that we don't know if they've gone elsewhere into humans yet. Some strategies that could help to achieve this can operate in the background. Far ultraviolet lamps, for instance, could disinfect the air in public spaces, but many others require public buy-in and sometimes confused messaging or absolutely wrong messaging that caused the death of hundreds of thousands of people, revealed weaknesses in how public health authorities communicate health advice. Researchers have laid a path to better pandemic preparedness. Leaders of governments and industry must now follow it. Well, they haven't. Okay, researchers may have. All right. Yes, leaders just have to do what they know they have to do. But there's no money to be made in doing the right thing. It's much better if the disease ends up being an outbreak. Then the pharmaceutical industry can make shitloads of money, as can the healthcare industry. We're pleased to acknowledge the funding provided by a grant from AstraZeneca and the financial support of Moderna in producing this outlook. As always, nature retains sole responsibility for all editorial content. Okay, well, this is just annoying. At least they told us. So, there really isn't much here. They didn't tell us really what we can do or what should be done. I mean, we've known there's Ebola and Zika. Yes, that's exactly right. Yep, Ebola and Zika. Yep. And we have vaccines for that, I think, already. But yeah, it's not really distributed because we haven't seen it yet. But we are going to start seeing it. So lockdown, right? Lockdown, social distance, wash your hands, and then yeah, the UV to help scrub the air, and using copper in places too is a good thing. Now, honestly, I'm almost to the point in my policies where I'm considering adding to like the month of September, October, September or October, adding a 3-week lockdown every year so that people are prepared for it. Plus, this gets right after school starts so that we can get, or maybe we can do it before school starts. Maybe that's the best way to do it. Oh, yeah. So maybe doing it in September, no, June, July, August, September. Maybe, well, anyhow, somewhere around there. Do like a 3-week lockdown. That way we can get people, if they're sick, get them beyond their sickness, and then go ahead and move forward. That'll help us to reduce the number of diseases globally if we do it here in this country, in addition to all the other stuff. And it also gets people ready to do another lockdown later on in case there's another disease that comes that we need to do a lockdown from. Yeah, I mean, we know what we need to do, but our country's never going to do it because there's no money in doing it. Okay. So that wasn't as interesting as I was hoping. My dad has COVID. He's 96 years old, and he has pneumonia. Oh, I'm so sorry. Sorry to hear that. That's one of the issues with COVID, that as you get it, if you get it, every time you get it, it reduces your immune system, and it makes it much more likely that you'll get hit with another respiratory disease. I hope, I'm not religious, but I will pray that everything's going to be okay for him. He's not young anymore, but hopefully they'll take good care of him and everything's going to be just fine. COVID and pneumonia, that's brutal. Pneumonia sucks. Hope it goes okay. I really do. Fucking COVID, fucking capitalists. Our family hasn't had anything yet. My daughter was sick. The first seems to be too ornery to pass. Well, that's a good thing. Yeah, being pissed off and just obstinate to everything. That can psychologically help to fight that disease. Yeah, cool. That's a good thing. What was I going to say? Saying something. I forgot what I was going to say. Okay. Yeah. Any other questions about COVID before we move on to other miscellaneous stuff? No, actually, we have climate stuff, don't we? Oh, we got this first. Right. Yeah, we'll do this, and then it'll be some climate stuff. And I'll throw my link on MMT in here in case you want to learn a little bit more about it. I've spent a bit of time researching it, but I don't have the full lowdown on it yet. But there's a lot of great stuff there to get you started. Oh, go back here. Okay. Ready? This is from September of 2020, so this is a bit I don't know if I've seen this or not. It's from Jason Hickel. He's fairly active on Twitter. And he does talk about, is he the one? I think he's the one that I added. Where is it? He had this great article on decolonizing Africa. Yeah, Jason Hickel. Yep. He's into MMT stuff, which is good. Okay, here we go. Take this off because I don't need it. Music on. All right, modern monetary theory is getting a lot of attention these days, thanks in large part to the excellent work of Stephanie Kelton. She's amazing. I like her videos. I read her book and her examples and everything. She's an excellent communicator. And Nathan Tankus, I have not heard of this guy at all. Okay, two of the movement's most effective communicators. For the past few weeks, a number of people inspired by their work have asked me whether there is scope for thinking about degrowth from an MMT perspective. My answer, definitely. In fact, the two belong together. Well, I'll share this post that he wrote on decolonizing Africa. It was a great read, and that inspired me to add this section here, the Pan-African Decolonized Union, as an example of how a resource-based economy might come into play. All right, first, a bit of background. MMT may sound complicated, but in fact, it is remarkably simple. Here's a good place to start. Point to my board. Oh.
By texting town hall, the words town hall to.
Okay, so this is Stephanie Kelton talking about probably her book, The Deficit Myth. I'll go and throw this in here. If I look at it, I think I'll keep this to watch it later. Way over here. It points out that governments that control their own currencies are not like households. They do not have to balance their budgets. And crucially, they do not have to tax or borrow before they can spend. In reality, they create the money they spend, and they can create as much of it as they want. This is clear to anyone who has been paying attention since the global financial crisis of 2008. Countries like the US and UK have created extraordinary amounts of money to prop up the banking system, bailouts, right? Same thing is happening right now in response to the COVID-19 crisis. Yeah, and when you look at that, right, they did what? 20 billion in spending in the first 6 months to a year of COVID, something like that. There's no taxing with that. Congress passes a bill, the money's there, and then they spend it. It's really that simple. The beginning of COVID was a great example of this. Governments are simply creating the money they need to respond. This has always been the case, of course, but right now it's happening out in the open for all to see. The notion of budget constraints has been revealed as a myth. And I have a blog post started on this, right? My sister shared this meme about the budget ceiling and stuff like that, and you have a choice November 2020. So I'm starting I have a blog post quite well started on ripping that myth apart, specifically talking about, I have to talk about why the budget, the deficit, the budget limit, the debt limit, whatever stuff doesn't make any sense. And then I try and correct that meme as well. At some point I'll get it done and I'll put it before some MMT people just to make sure that I've got it right, and then I'll publish it. It'll be good stuff. This is not to say that governments can create and spend money without limit. MMT economists recognize a number of limits, but they have nothing to do with budgets or deficits. The key limit is inflation. Yep. You spend too much money into the economy, demand gets too hot, and risks driving excess inflation. MMT economists propose that we should use taxation to mitigate this risk. Right, exactly. And that's exactly what I talk about, this sort of thing. Governments can spend as much money as they want. The only real limit is actual resources and actual services available. Because if, like he's saying, if you overspend in any industry or for any resource, that's when inflation starts. So, and if you want to counter, proactively act towards countering inflation, you engage in taxation. Now, obviously the way they do it, they don't do it right, because one of the other primary goals for taxation on the federal level specifically is inequality control. But they don't do it that way. Much like in my policies, I talk about progressive taxation, and that's what we should be using, is progressive taxation. You should check out this YouTube channel. The guy is in the UK, but what is happening there is happening here. Okay. Gary's Economics.
I'm Gary Steve.
Okay. Groovy. I'll take a look. Thanks. Yeah, so we need to tax the shit out of the rich. That's really what it boils down to. And that's how you really reduce inequality and how you control inflation, by having progressive taxation, basically zero at the bottom, people who are suffering the most, and then you take it up to like over 100% taxation on those who are rich. All right. You tax the rich not to fund government spending, but rather simply to remove money from people who accumulate too much, recognizing that inequality is corrosive to society and to democracy, and we are all better off without it. Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right. Gary says, what does Gary say? What are you talking about, Willis? Is that what he says? He says sack the rich? Okay. He's definitely cool if he's saying that. Awesome. Good to hear. I will definitely check that out. All of this changes how we think about money. MMT proposes that we should understand money as something we use, rather something we own. The government creates money, spends it into the economy for all of us to use in our daily lives, and mitigates the dangers of excess money or excess accumulation by pulling some of it back out, thus keeping things in balance. So what does all this mean for degrowth? Let's start by clarifying what degrowth is. What degrowth is trying to do. Okay, this is something that I definitely want to learn. I keep hearing this. I think I have an idea what it is, but I definitely want that clarified. Degrowth has two parts, an ecology part and a social justice part. Oh, okay, cool. It seeks to A, reduce excess resource and energy use, specifically in high-income nations. I have a thing on this. Oh, you can't see this. Let me open this up in here. Can I open this? No. Nope. Work with me. Open. Where? Open with. Not Firefox. Open Chrome. Open in Chrome, damn it. Can I do this? I can. Here we go. But I have to go back. Okay, so I found this somewhere, and I need to do more reading on this, but this shows the percentage of CO2 emissions by world population. So the richest 49%, the richest half of the country, of the world, sorry, and the richest 10% responsible for almost half of total lifestyle consumption. So the top 10% is responsible for almost half of the CO2 emissions. So degrowth is great for attacking climate change. Sure. Well, this is local. This is local to me. Let me find this percentage. Percentage of CO2. I can't. I need to get a new keyboard. My backspace key is sticking. C by world population. World population. There's what else is on here? I don't see the exact one, but these are okay. I'll just share this with you, and you can go through the search and find it, because I don't see the exact. Yeah, I don't see the exact one right here. Does it say on the side who's it from? Oh, good question. Markup of it's from at Oxfam 2015. Oh, here it is. Yeah, now I gotta figure out what the hell it is. Yeah, so it does say it here, but it's hard to read. I'll pull it up over here. Where are you? www.oxfam.org/sites org/by/what the fuck is that? I don't know what that says. It's okay. I'm trying. What the? Oh, that's MB. No, file. That's file. That's the word file. Okay, so file. Okay, so file underscore attachments/MB dash extreme carbon inequality. Almost there, dude. Almost there. 021-215. It's what it dash n dot EF. Copy. Nope, doesn't like it. Oh, okay, so here, space in there. Okay. Well, this is what I found so far. You can go from there. Then the search will get you the basics. This is the basics of it, and one without the extra markup. Ox and yeah, it's going to take a little bit of searching to find that exact one, but these get you the basic information there. Okay, here we go. Okay, reduce resource and energy use, specifically in high-income nations, America and Europe, in order to bring the economy back into balance with the living world, and to do so while at the same time reducing inequality and improving people's access to things they need to live long, healthy, and flourishing lives. So far, degrowth scholars have developed a range of convincing feasibility policy proposals for how to accomplish this double objective. I discussed the main ideas in Chapter 5 in Less is More. Maybe I need to read that book. But we can also approach this challenge using MMT's tools, and indeed, perhaps it is even easier to think of it this way. First step is to harness the power of the government's role as the issuer of currency to do 3 urgent things. Develop generous, high-quality, universal public services, not just healthcare and education, but also public transportation, affordable housing. Over and over again, the evidence is clear that universal public services, not perpetual GDP growth, are key to healthy, flourishing society. Yes, I am down with that. That's a lot of what my policies do. Definitely, 100%. Universal healthcare, universal education, public transportation, housing is a human right. Yes, definitely. Renewable energy infrastructure to completely replace fossil fuels in a short period of time, a matter of years, not decades, 100%, while regenerating ecosystems. Thus far, we have not done this because we are told it is too expensive. Yep, this is a lie. The best news of the 21st century is that every single government that controls its own currency can fund a rapid transition to renewables without even thinking twice about cost. Right, and we saw that right in my environmental policies. Actually, I won't share that directly. That there was the article, the study that said we'll save like 11 trillion by shifting to sustainable energy. It'll cost 62 trillion, but in 6 years we'll save 11 trillion. So we'll make that money back in 6 years' time, which is just insane. So stupid we're not doing it. Introduce a public jobs guarantee so that anyone who wants to work can get a job doing socially useful things that communities actually need, including working in public services, building renewable energy infrastructure, and regenerating ecosystems. With a living wage at 30 hours a week. Oh, that's nice. Oh, so he's doing a living wage plus reducing the hours per week. This is fucking fancy. This asshole's stealing my policies. This has the additional effect of raising wages and reducing working hours across the economy, effectively shifting income from capital to labor. Yeah, but what I start with is 32 hours. I wonder why he chose 30. Curious what this study is on that. Okay, this is good stuff. I love this. Yeah, so it's basically looking at the Green New Deal. That's kind of what the Green New Deal would end up doing. They use the jobs guarantee as a method of providing labor force for people to leave shitty jobs and to go into things that communities actually need, like conservation and, like he's saying here, building and manning, sustainable energy, and that sort of thing. Good stuff. This approach reduces inequality, decommodifies key parts of the economy, and ensures that everyone has access to meaningful, well-paid work and high-quality public services. In other words, it reorganizes the economy around user value rather than exchange value, an objective that is central to degrowth thought. Okay, this I'm not familiar. Okay, so this takes care of social justice aspects of degrowth. Of course, all this government spending puts money into the economy and into people's pockets, and private consumption will begin to rise. Although this is mitigated to some extent because, as I explained in Less is More, shortening the working week, reducing inequality, and expanding access to public services actually takes significant pressure off private consumption. Okay, for private consumption, they must mean purchasing stuff, buying stuff. Although reducing the hours per week will give more people more time to spend money, actually. But okay, all right. Okay, yep. So yes, public services will reduce loads on private companies. Classic MMT sees this as a problem because it might cause excess inflationary pressures. But from the perspective of degrowth, it is a problem because it will lead to an increase in resource and energy use. Yeah, that's kind of what I was looking at. More money in less hours will mean more spending. This is where taxation comes in. Yep. In classic MMT, use taxation to reduce demand in order to control inflation, but we can also use taxation to reduce demand in order to bring resource and energy use down to target levels. And of course, we can do this in a progressive way by starting with the rich, which is important because, as Tom Piketty pointed out, I have the book, but I have not read it yet because it is a beast. At some point, hopefully I will. Reducing the purchasing power of the rich is one of the single most effective climate policies we can deploy because the energy use of the rich is way out of whack. Yep, and that picture, that graph I just showed you a little bit ago, talks about that. So in short, the government would create money in order to expand the use value economy, the things that people actually need to live well, and would then use taxation to regulate the exchange value economy to reduce excess private consumption in order to keep the economy in balance with the living world. Yeah, this is everything my policies do right here. What my policies do. And I do that progressive taxation with a fucking sledgehammer because I have at maximum wage is times 9 the lowest, and then I have 100% marginal tax rate at 100%, or at the marginal 100% tax rate at the maximum wage. There we go. And then I also introduce luxury taxes so that if you buy a private right. But we can also approach this challenge using MMT's tools, and indeed perhaps... Did I listen to something? Is that what... Easier to think of it this way. First step is to harness the power of the government's role as
you clipped it.
Currency to do
okay.
things.
I've never had a clip before. Actually, I've had one clip before.
High-quality universal public services.
Okay, hold on.
Not just healthcare and education, but also public transportation, affordable housing. Over and over again, the evidence is clear that universal public services, not perpetual GDP growth, are key to healthy, flourishing society. Yes, I am down with that. That's what a lot of my policies do. Definitely, 100%. Universal healthcare, universal education, public transportation, housing is a human right. Yes, definitely.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I have to get into the habit of using these a little bit more. I definitely needed to be celebrated. Okay. With this approach, the age-old question of will we have enough GDP, gross domestic product, in a degrowth scenario to provide for thriving lives becomes irrelevant. We can generate the funding for public services and the job guarantee without even a thought to GDP. GDP becomes an irrelevant indicator. Indeed, parts of the economy that are presently measured by GDP might shrink, but that's okay because GDP is not the primary arbiter of provisioning. In the scenario I've described, the majority of provisioning is done directly, so exchange value GDP might decline, but useful value improves. Okay, some degrowth scholars have worried about MMT in the past because we know that debt is always a bad thing when it comes to resource and energy use. Thinking goes that just as debt represents a claim on future labor, so too represents a claim on future resource and energy use. Where are they coming with this? And because debt comes with interest and interest grows, debt generates real pressures for GDP growth, which is one of the issues with debt-driven economic growth, which of course has severe ecological impact. But in MMT, deficit spending is not the same as what private borrowers experience as debt. Why? Because deficit spending does not, in fact, have to be paid back. Yep. This breaks with how government usually talks about deficits. We often hear that because there's a deficit, we have to do all we can to grow the economy in order to pay it down. MMT argues that this simply isn't true. Indeed, we might say that the deficit is just an alibi for those who seek to grow the economy for other purposes to maximize elite accumulation, which is the alibi is false, and we can call it out. Yeah, and that's what my post was talking. It talks about that the deficit is just a scare tactic, but when the economy grows, it outpaces the debt, which is fixed. Yes. Yeah. It would have to grow in a way that would outpace the debt. Yes. Yeah, exactly. But that's the fact that you have debt and you have interest-bearing debt forces it to have to grow at least at the rate of, yeah. No, you're good. You got it right. The economy would have to grow at least at the rate of the interest rate so that we can at least ensure that we pay it back. But that, debt is always being made all the time. So that requires the economy, the GDP, to keep growing all the time, which is, again, a part of that infinite growth on a finite world problem. That's one of the reasons I haven't really thought about it like this, that we need to somehow shift to an economy that isn't debt driven. I haven't really thought about that as a reason to shift to a resource-based economy, which would get rid of all of that sort of stuff. But that is interesting. I need to write that down. Huh? Economic growth. To outpace interest. Okay, there we go. All this raises a question. If governments can create and spend money so easily, then why have they so long told us otherwise? My post talks about this because ultimately, if all the politicians still talk about the debt and, well, not really debt. They talk about federal spending like household because then debt is a scary word. That way they can inflict austerity upon us peasants and give money to the rich because they're all about, trickle-down economics. That's still a thing. The moment that the people understand that austerity is never required, not just that austerity isn't required, but austerity it kills people. People are dying and suffering and they didn't have to for, decades and decades and decades. There will be people in the streets rioting because people have lost family, they've lost friends, they've lost their livelihoods because government bullshit and austerity programs. All in a bid to privatize all the things so that the corporations and the rich can make all the money while the rest of us die in the streets. Good stuff. Good, moral, ethical economics. All this raises a question. If governments can create and spend money so easily, then why have they told us otherwise? According to MMT economists, the narrative of fiscal responsibility is a ruse that's intended in large part to prevent people from demanding that government provide job guarantees and universal public services. Yep, 100%. Because how are you going to pay for it? Member governments are happy to create money when it comes to financing wars and pumping up asset values, but when it comes to paying for public services, they say it's not possible. Yeah, exactly, 100%. That's why it's there. It's there to make sure the rich people get rich and the poor get jack shit. Why would governments do such a thing? Because if people had access to public job guarantee, doing socially useful work, and if they had access to high quality universal services, then why on earth would they ever agree to do socially unnecessary, meaningless, or degrading labor for private firms? If the goal of such firms is primarily to accumulate profit for the shareholders of capital, not just so the primary goal of these businesses is to get as much profit as possible. As long as we have this sort of economic view, it makes it much easier to exploit the masses and extort them of their value of their labor. In other words, governments have to maintain an artificial scarcity of money in order to ensure a steady flow of cheap labor for private firms. As I argue in Less is More, capitalism seeks to sabotage abundance in order to generate private riches. Yeah, that's exactly right. This leaves us with an interesting point. MMT proposals align elegantly with one of de Groot's key observations, namely that if growthism depends on the perpetual creation of artificial scarcity, then by reversing artificial scarcity by providing public abundance, we can dismantle the growth imperative. As Georgios Kallis has put it, capitalism cannot survive under conditions of abundance. That is 100% right. MMT provides an opportunity for us to create a post-growth, post-capitalist economy. Okay, so here's the thing. Capitalism, we are currently in a state of abundance. There's abundance everywhere. It's just not everyone has access to it because of the policies put in place and the austerity inflicted upon us, right? We are in the age of artificial scarcity. Scarcity that's not real because we have abundance. Because people don't have access to it. So, on its face, capitalism can definitely survive in abundance because we are currently in abundance. But that abundance is not evenly distributed, and that's the big thing here. It's the distribution of that abundance that really matters. And I know that's what he's looking at here with policies and stuff like that. But it's that distribution, that more equitable distribution of that abundance that makes it much more difficult for businesses to exploit and engage in harmful business practices. Because, if we're in a society of abundance of significant public services, so healthcare, education, housing as a human right, and even this the federal jobs guarantee and stuff like that, then they don't have to work for these shitty businesses. They can just go do the federal jobs guarantee and do something useful for society and then tell these shitty businesses to fuck off. It would powerfully raise the bar of businesses because they couldn't just be shitty. I've done so much without money, he threw away, and I tweeted, oh, fuck yeah. Yeah, Twitter. Elon Musk is a tool. Yeah, 44 billion could have done, Jesus. What that man could have done to change the world it's stunning. He's one of the richest men in the whole world, and he bought Twitter, and now he's trashing Twitter. It just provides a good example of why we need to tax the shit out of these guys till they have nothing left. I'm worried about whether or not Twitter is going to survive because, for the past few years, I've been quite active on Twitter because there's a lot of great people on there to connect with, but he's fucking all that up, so annoying. Super annoying. Yeah, like we've bitched about here before, if you really cared about saving humanity from extinction, not just making money, he would be doing sustainable mass transportation. That is what he'd be concentrating on. Electric cars is just greenwashing. Doesn't really help us get to a point where we can actually approach saving humanity from extinction, from climate change. We need massive infrastructure change in all of our cities to sustainable mass transportation and get rid of all these fucking cars. That's what we need. So, good article. I approve. We're on the same wavelength here on how to deal with things. That's great. I'm definitely have to read his book. Because then I'll probably have to adjust my policies some. Like when I read Donut Economics, I made some significant changes to my policies based on what was Yeah, it was. It's really great. Maybe I'll have to add this. I'll add this to my MMT page, I think, because I think this is good stuff here. It's my first real delving into degrowth. But degrowth, I'm a fan. I'm a fan. Degrowth is what I do. We have to find some more articles on degrowth so we can explore that a bit more. All right, now we're into climate change stuff. This is... I wasn't sure what office this was, but it looks like it's... Oh, school board. Oh, look at this. This might do me some good to read. See how they ran. This is The Intercept. This is September 13th, so this is a few months ago. October, November, 2 months ago. All right, Idaho's far right suffers election loss to 18-year-old climate activist. High school senior. Oh, she's this is her? Eva Rajbandari won elected office in Boise, defeating an incumbent school board trustee backed by local extremists. We have that same issue here, but a lot of right-wingers are running for office. Last year, Shiva Rajbandari, right, and other high school students on March for Our Lives Idaho board. March for Our Lives Idaho board. March for Our Lives. What? March for Our Lives Idaho board lobbied for legislation to require minors to pass a gun safety test before being allowed to purchase weapons. Doesn't make any sense. Oh, okay. So I guess they're saying they want minors to take the test first. Okay, sure, that makes sense. All right. The nationwide campaign to stifle discussions of race and gender in public schools through misinformation and bullying suffered a reversal in Idaho on Monday when a high school senior vocally opposed to book bans and smears against LGBTQ+ youth took a seat on the Boise school board. I would give her the biggest fucking hug. That is... Okay, hold on. This is huge. That is amazing. It gives me hope that I could win a seat. I have to look at how she approached it and then change the way I do things. The student Shiva Rajbandari was elected to the position by voters in Idaho's capital last week, defeating an incumbent board member who had refused to reject an endorsement from a local extremist group that has harassed students and pushed to censor local libraries. I haven't heard any of this locally, so hopefully we're not having any library censorship. We'll see. They made history. I'm excited to be part of this team to make our schools the best they can. Thank you, Boise, for making history a reality. I also thoroughly appreciate all the constituents who took time to write to the board on the freedom to read. Book bans have no place in Boise. Yeah, and when I was attending the school board meetings, the majority of the people who had something to say were all right-wingers. For every 5 right-wingers, there might be one person who was not. We're going to have to come up with a different name for your stream now. Doomer News might not fit anymore. Well, I gotta sprinkle some hope in every so often. I mean, 90% of it is we're fucked and we're all gonna die. But, I gotta have a little bit of good news in here every so often. Just, almost completely Doomer News. How about that? Doomer News with a sprinkle of not. Don't get too excited. Yeah, because I got a bunch of climate change stuff coming up here, so I'll make sure to counter that really quickly. Rajbandari, who turned 18 days before the election, was already well known in the school district as a student organizer on climate, environmental, voting rights, and gun control issues. But in the closing day of the campaign, his opponent... Whoa, hold on. It's a his, not... What? His opponent, Steve Schmidt, was endorsed by far-right Idaho Liberty Dogs, which in response helped Raj Bhandari win the endorsement of Boise's leading newspaper, the Idaho Statesman. Raj Bhandari, oh, it's a boy. A third generational Idahoan whose father was from Nepal was elected to a 2-year term with 56% of the vote. Okay, is this wrong then? Or can I? Oh yeah, I just can't read. There we go. Shiva Raj Bhandari on the right. This is the right. For everyone who has problems with left and right, like I do, this is the right. This is the left. The right. This is the left. Such an American. Thank you, Boise. Now the real work starts. Look at this. This is awesome. I wish we had a group like that was active here of kids doing their stuff. That would be amazing. In an interview, Raj Bhandari told me that although he had hoped people would vote for him rather than against his opponent, well, that's what you get when you have winner takes all voting. My campaign was not against Steve Schmidt, he said. He was nonetheless shocked that Schmidt did not even reject the far-right group's endorsement. I think that's why the majority of voters took issue. That's what the majority of voters took issue with, Raj Bhandari said. The Idaho Liberty Dogs, which attacked Raj Bhandari on Facebook for being pro-masks, vaccines. Yep. I was at one of the, not last year, but the year before, at one of the forums. I was probably the only person wearing a mask there. Because they had, they had 8 of us. 8 candidates that were running. And the guy who was not next to me. Yeah, he was next to me in this. He said I was virtue signaling by wearing a mask and stuff like that. It was really, yeah, I know people are out there like that, but have it right there. Yeah, he was conservative Christian, and it wasn't good. So yes, being pro-mask, vaccine, and leading protests which create traffic jams and cost taxpayers money. Spent the summer agitating to have books removed from public libraries in Nampa and Meridian, 2 cities in the Boise metro area. Yeah, and again, he's concentrating stuff that don't actually matter. I mean, vaccines and masks definitely do matter, but not. Boy's concentrating on climate change and human rights and stuff like that. That's a good thing. You look, mask, no mask, no mask. Exactly. I strongly stand against book bans. Free access to information is the cornerstone of a democratic civil society, and I refuse to back down to extremists. On the school board, I will continue to advocate for student dignity and teacher freedom. Cool. But Raj Bhandari said that's the least of what they've done. Last year, there was a kid who brought a gun to Boise High, which is my school, and he got suspended, and they organized an armed protest outside our school. Jesus. Who would be a fucking idiot to do that? Raj Bhandari, who started leading Extinction Rebellion climate protests in Boise. Ah, that's why he's a part of XR. Cool. When he was 15. He's familiar with the group's tactics. We used to have climate strikes, like back in 9th grade, and they would come with AR-15s, he said, bringing rifles to intimidate a bunch of kids protesting for a livable future. Yeah, this is the complete and total fucking stupidity of it. Bunch of right-wing nutjobs bringing rifles to intimidate children who want to have a planet to live on. Shows the complete brokenness of their complete lack of values and priorities. Ugh. So when the Idaho Liberty Dogs called on Boise voters to support Schmidt and a slate of other candidates for the school board, who ultimately all lost, what? Nice. Raj Bhandari told me he texted his rival to say, "You need to immediately disavow this." This is a hate group. Raj Bhandari says he told Schmidt, "They intimidate teachers, they are a stain on our schools, and their involvement in this election is a stain on your candidacy." Good one. Schmidt, however, refused to clearly reject the group even after the Idaho Liberty Dogs lashed out at a local rabbi who criticized the endorsement by comparing the rabbi to Hitler and claiming that he harbored an unrelenting hatred for white Christians. Good stuff. Christofascism. Good stuff. While the school board election was a hyper-local one, Raj Bhandari is aware that the forces he's battling operate on the state and national level. Yep. Idaho was at the center of this out-of-state funded far-right attack to try to undermine undermine schools with the end goal of actually abolishing public education. Yep, fair. When there's a group there called the Idaho Freedom Foundation, and they actually control a lot of the political discourse in our legislature. Primary goal is to get rid of public education and disperse the money to charter schools or get rid of that funding entirely. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly what the right wing wants to do. End all government public services and privatize all of it so that we can live in a corporatocracy. A corporate nation state. Corporate city states. And the way they've done that is with this very well thought out attack on teachers. He added promoting baseless claims of indoctrination in school, as well as attacks on LGBTQ youth with claims of grooming. Oh my god. Last year when he was 16, Raj Bhandari publicly confronted Idaho's far-right Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeachin, telling her that the task force she set up to examine indoctrination in Idaho education was investigating an entirely imaginary threat. Let's see what this neat boy has to say. Actually, let's open it up. All right, let me know if you can hear this and see this okay. Up a little bit. There. All right.
Madam Chair, Lieutenant Governor, I want to speak more to that today. Madam Chair, Lieutenant Governor McGee, Representative Giddings, you won't succeed. You won't succeed in silencing student voices. You won't succeed at bringing Idaho back to the 1800s. You won't succeed at abolishing public schools as the Freedom Foundation aspires. And you won't succeed in being elected to the executive branch of state government, which I feel is the true purpose of this press time. And you won't succeed because despite all your efforts, we Idahoans are smart, we're educated, and we can't be fooled into believing that something exists when the opposite is true. All across the state, there are young people like me who will vote in the Republican primary for the first time in 2022. And we are watching, and we see your attempts to silence us, we see your attempts to defund our public schools, we see the propaganda the Freedom Foundation has put out to discredit educators and advocate for what they call school choice, but what many see as, a way to advocate for alternate, reducing funding for education and advocate for online learning or homeschooling, when really that doesn't work for the vast majority of Idahoan students. And we will vote with that in mind in 2022. So that was my testimony, and I'll stand for questions after, but I want to share my friend Yvonne's. She's a freshman at North Junior High. She says, I oppose this task force. I've been enrolled in Idaho's education system since first grade, and it truly breaks my heart to see how we treat our educators and the education system in general. Not only do teachers get paid very little in return for their hard work, but now they're getting publicly accused of indoctrinating their students, which, by the way, is a complete lie with absolutely no evidence. This is not fair. This is the extremism that Idaho is known for. This should not be such a polarizing issue. For the record, in class, we don't even learn enough history to begin with. We don't learn about things like the Tulsa Race Massacre, where black residents had their homes and businesses destroyed, about redlining, or the Hell's Canyon Massacre, where Chinese miners were murdered right here in Idaho. We learn these things on our own time, often hearing about them through social media and doing our own research to follow. Knowing and acknowledging that parts of America's past were racist does not mean that we've been indoctrinated. And let me make myself clear, and this is Yvonne speaking. America is not a bad country, but it's certainly not perfect either. Acknowledging that we made mistakes while trying to move on by learning from them is what a true patriot does. It is also important to note that since the establishment of this task force in June, this is the first meeting where public testimony is allowed. Right after school starts, and it happens right after school starts, making it extremely difficult for students to show up. My school is pretty close, and I was driven here immediately after the bell rang. Yet I'm still a few hours late, and unfortunately too late to sign up for testimony. My school, it almost seems as if you're silencing our voices when they are some of the ones that matter the most when it comes to our education. We live in a country where we are told that our voices matter and our votes matter. To Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeachin, to Representative Priscilla Giddings, to all the other task force members here, I hope you listen to the voices you are hearing, because we are the future of America. Thank you for your time. And I'll stand for questions.
Okay, committee, are there any questions for Shiva on his testimony? Go ahead, Representative Giddings.
Thank you. Mr. Shiva, just a quick question. Are you a member of BLM Boise or Extinction Rebellion Boise chapter?
I am not a member of BLM Boise.
And Extinction Rebellion?
I'm the founder of Extinction Rebellion in Boise.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Shiva? All right. Well, thank you, Reverend Wilson. Go ahead.
Madam Chairman, Shiva, thank you first of all, thank you for your courage in coming forward to speak. I categorically disagree with you that we made it hard for you to do that, but I do appreciate your courage because it takes courage to stand in front of people and say what's on your heart. I want to ask you, did you listen to the evidence that was presented? Have you Googled critical race theory? And I'm not trying to put you down or be condescending. I'm saying that the people who came forward ahead of you have spent obviously hundreds of hours doing their research, and nobody I don't expect you to do that, but you Google critical race theory, you're going to come up with a fountain. And I'm just wondering, have you done that?
Shiva.
Yeah, Madam Chair, and thank you, Reverend. I have Googled critical race theory, and yes, I did listen to the testimony. And I wanted to share something with you, a personal story, in some form, which is that what I found is when parents, I think that parents are stakeholders in their child's education, but you can't run a classroom with 26 kids and not expect for a parent to be upset.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. A bunch of right-wingers. I mean, I covered this when we were going through this, and actually, I added stuff in here about that very thing. The guy who specifically started this and critical race. Can I spell? I can't spell. I have links in there about that. Yeah, here it is for. Yeah, if you go into Discord and search critical race theory, there's the history of it and videos on it and stuff like that. And the guy who started all of this, Christopher Rufo, we have successfully frozen their brand, critical race theory, into the public conversation and are steadily driving up negative perceptions. We will eventually turn it toxic as we put all of the various cultural insanities under that brand category. The goal is to have the public read something crazy in the newspaper and immediately think critical race theory. We have decodified the term and will recodify it to annex the entire range of cultural constructions that are popular with Americans. Yeah, it is buried. You have to really know how to look and really to be educated enough to figure out what is the problem and what isn't. So if you want more on that, it's in Discord. There's even some more news video talking about it. You Googled CRT when this first became the right-wing focus. The real info was there. Right. Yeah. So yeah, because some of the news places would tell you what it is, but then eventually the right-wingers and their publications would bury it. Yeah, exactly. It's very hard. It's something that each person has to learn, like what to trust, who not to trust, learn to see if you're being manipulated and stuff like that. It's difficult. I don't envy my daughter as she's growing up and learning to use the web and trying to figure out. I mean, she asked media literacy. Yes, exactly. She asked me, well, which ones should I trust? Well, that takes. If you ask me about a source, I can probably tell you if you can trust it or not. But it takes time to learn. The more you have to use the web and you have to use your brain, use your compassion. It's not just media literacy plus compassion. Media literacy plus a connection to interdependence, right? Anything that seeks to separate you from others, like this bullshit, is definitely something you should be suspect of and probably throw away. So yeah, it's difficult. Free speech has it's a boon and it's a bane as well.
Sometime, and I wholeheartedly, I mean, I feel for the woman who testified earlier who said their daughter had been bullied, and that is really wrong. I don't really see how any of this relates to critical race theory, because I haven't heard evidence of critical race theory being taught in schools, except from a guy from New Zealand, I think, who spoke at this task force earlier, and I question, kind of the his expertise on teaching critical race theory, specifically in Idaho. And what I see this task force, and actually the national campaign funded by the Heritage Foundation and the Koch brothers and the Freedom Foundation, the goal of that, I think, is less to talk about critical race theory, which, is kind of a puppet word that we don't, critical race theory is something that's kind of discussed in graduate school. It's not taught in elementary school. It's not taught in high school. It's taught in graduate school as a philosophy, right? So when we see, when we talk about critical race theory and we tell the public that something's bad and that they don't know anything about, there's a reason, I think, that this task force chose to examine critical race theory rather than social justice, or chose to examine critical race theory rather than anti-racism. And I understand that members of this task force believe that those words are one and the same, but I think it's also because the public doesn't know what critical race theory is, and also because critical race theory is something that we can this national message that's kind of going out, which is taking the focus away from the real issues in public education, which Idaho's 51st in the country in public education, right, as you know, in funding. And instead, working to discredit our schools. And I think the Freedom Foundation, I mean, you look at their tweets, Wayne Hoffman says he does not believe the government has business in public schools. What does this mean for the public? What does this mean for students? I don't know where I'd be without public schools. I probably wouldn't have the courage to speak up here, because you know what? Public schools are empowering and they teach critical thinking. And that is so important for building the leaders of our future. And it's really unfortunate that our Idaho government is choosing to focus on something that's not happening, rather than the issues that are affecting students right now during this pandemic year, which has been hard on students' mental health, during when much of our state can't afford to have full-day pre-kindergarten or full-day kindergarten, much less pre-kindergarten, when property tax rates are rising because our state fails to fund it fails to achieve its constitutionally mandated responsibility of funding public schools equitably, and so communities are taking it upon themselves to raise their own property taxes to pay for public schools, and I think that's really unfortunate. And I think it's unfortunate that we have a $1.4 billion surplus, and none of that is going to public schools, which I think are the foundation of America. People say, and I wish someone would ask me, well, why is America great? Why is America the greatest country on earth? And I think it's because we have this opportunity for civil discourse. We have this opportunity to have public testimony, and it's unfortunate that there wasn't more of that opportunity earlier in these task force meetings. But because we have those opportunities, I think that allows us to have this democratic society. And by limiting the voice in schools, by limiting what clubs can do, what teachers can say, by intimidating teachers, intimidating students into not discussing issues that matter to them, we are failing our democratic duties, and we're kind of on the road to an authoritarian society, which is, I think, really unfortunate. There needs to be opportunities for student engagement and public involvement at all forms, at all times in government, and local control as well.
Okay, Shiva, I would just comment that that's what we're doing. We're here, we're listening, and we're understanding and talking about something that many people don't want to talk about. So,
No, they're not. They're starting with an already disingenuous, an intellectually dishonest and disingenuous starting point. The fact that they even started with critical race theory shows that they are not here for anything but right-wing fascism, right-wing authoritarianism, just like he's saying, trying to privatize the school system. That's all there is. Anyone who says, who utters the word critical race theory and is not talking about, I know, critical race theory, like you said, it's a graduate level course that people in law take. It's usually, I think it's typically an elective course. It isn't always taught, but it's available at that level, and it has nothing to do with high schools or grade schools. I mean, I would ask him if this guy, if he knows what it is. I would ask each one of them to say, what is critical race theory? And where is it present in our schools? See how many of them could answer it correctly. Arrgh. Yeah, that's good stuff. You had good answers. Gives me hope. During in-person testimony to the task force, the young activist told McGeechan, who was running for governor at the time, and her running mate, State Representative Priscilla Giddings, Idaho teachers were not indoctrinating students to hate America, as this committee purports. He went on to accuse the two Republican officials of endorsing baseless conspiracy theories as a political stunt in support of their candidacies. True statement. Yeah, and this is just the thing, right? If you're teaching history, if what they're teaching you is making you feel happy and proud, it's probably not history. It's propaganda. Especially the United States' history. It is horrific, it is violent, it is genocidal, it is wrong on almost every single fucking level. I mean, he's still young yet. He says we're the greatest country in the world. We're not. We are, as Trump would say it, we are a shithole country. And yeah, and democracy too. We don't have democracy either. But he's so far ahead of me when I was there. I mean, I didn't get into politics until my 30s. He's so far ahead of me. It's awesome to see. It's graduate level coursework, but whittled down to high school level. It is when your teacher discusses Black Wall Street and the fact that less than 1% of Black veterans got homes. Right, exactly. Yeah, and just like the guy who started this whole thing said, it's all about basically rebranding critical race theory to talk about anything that talks about equality and racism and all that stuff. So it becomes, instead of this specific thing, graduate level course for law, it now becomes all these things so that they can just attack everything that's useful and try and get rid of it under critical race theory. Danger, Will Robinson. Fucking stupid. So stupid. You won't succeed, he told them. You won't succeed in silencing student voices. You won't succeed at bringing Idaho back to the 1800s. You won't succeed at abolishing public schools as the Freedom Foundation. Yeah, you automatically know any organization that says something like this, or Freedom, or Patriots, or whatever, you know it's right-wing, and they're lying. And you won't succeed in being elected to the executive branch of state government, which I feel is the true purpose of this. And you won't succeed because, despite all your efforts, we Idahoans are smart, we're educated, and we can't be fooled into believing that something exists when the opposite is true. Raj Bhandari added, all across the state, there are young people like me who will vote in the Republican primary for the first time in 2022. McGeechan, who was, as Raj Bhandari had predicted, ultimately defeated in the Republican primary for governor, had launched the task force by appealing for information regarding problematic teachings and social justice, critical race theory, socialism, communism, or Marxism in public schools. You're not going to like my policies then. Activism is kind of the core of what I want our children taught. I have a post that I'm working on about dealing with bullying in schools. I'm working on this forever, but I kind of go into that sort of stuff in there. But the response from Idahoans was so overwhelmingly opposed to her claims of widespread indoctrination that she refused to make the comments submitted to the task force public until a court ordered her to do so. Review of the records by Idaho Capital Sun showed that about 90% of the public comments on the subject either denied that Idaho teachers were indoctrinating students or criticized McGeechan for wasting taxpayer dollars chasing an illusion. Oh, good stuff. I wouldn't expect this, 90%, because, right-wingers are much better organized and funded. But that's awesome. That's very awesome. The initial impetus for Raj Bhandari's run for office was a feeling of frustration that the Boise School Board was simply ignoring pleas from student climate activists to make clean energy commitment. 2 years ago, he said a group of high school and junior high students tried everything they could think of to urge the board to make a commitment to renewable energy. We sent emails, we did a postcard drive, and wrote like 300 postcards. Wow. We met with our local power company, and we had a petition. who delivered the largest petition ever to our school district. Raj Bhandari said, but the board never responded. Last year, I wrote a letter to our school board president just asking for a meeting, and I never got anything back. But I know that he read my letter because about a week later, I was called to the principal's office. Oh, no, you didn't. That's when I knew I was going to run for a seat on the board, Raj Bhandari recalled, because that is indicative of a problem. Students are the primary stakeholders in education, right? Yet our board wasn't seeing us as constituents, and they weren't willing to meet with us, and they weren't taking our ideas seriously, he said. Okay, I can't talk today. Well, I wouldn't say students are the primary stakeholders. It's actually, I think it's society at large. Society in general is the primary stakeholder, like teaching our children what they need to know to be a valuable member of society. But yes, students, teachers, like when I was speaking before the board, I said, or actually not before the board. Yeah, when I was for the board as well, I'm here to represent the students and the families, students and the parents and the teachers. That is who I'm there to represent. I'm not here for the board. I'm not here for the district. I'm here for them. They are my constituents. All right. That's not to say that my run for the board comes from a place of animosity, he added. It comes from a place of need, which is that we don't have student representation on the Boise School Board. And our board members aren't boots on the ground in the classroom. That's a good point. Didn't I do something with that? I think I changed something for that. My policies, trying to have teacher representation and student representation on the board. I don't think I have. Nope. Well, that's a good idea to add. Having teacher and student representation on the school board. Just like having union members and employee members on the governing boards as well. One of those urgent priorities for action from the board, Raj Bhandari says, is finding resources to address a mental health crisis in a state that has one of the highest teen suicide rates in the country. All goes according to plan. Raj Bhandari hopes to serve on the board for the whole school year, then hand over the seat to one of the high school juniors from the district who will shadow him for the year. Oh, nice. The idea is to ensure student representation on the Boise School Board going forward. As for his own future, Raj Bhandari told me he is looking at colleges now, but is not certain about what's next. I'm really passionate about climate justice, environmental issues, so maybe study law. I think that's what school's for, is for figuring out who you want to be. And really, Boise schools is what made me who I am, so I can thank my teachers for that. All right. There you go. Awesome. Good news. Good news. Kids making a difference. Questions or comments on that? Interesting, though, he decided to run. Oh, he did? That's interesting. I don't think he did. Where does it say that? That would be very strange. I mean, that would be one thing. Okay, there are 2 young people like me who will vote in the Republican primary for the first time in 2022. Okay, you're right. Well, school boards are, I think they're mostly nonpartisan. But yeah, you're right. He votes Republican. Interesting. Good catch. Wow. But that'd be one way to change the Republican side, right? To vote Republican and keep vote for more leftist or more, centrist. Keep pushing the party to the left instead of allowing it to keep going to the right. That might be one way to infect the Republican Party. Yes, that's right. He's going to infiltrate the party and take it down for this. Yeah, that might be one way. I mean, the Tea Party did that, right? And then Trump, MAGA people did that, right? And pushed them farther to the right. That might be one thing to do if you had a significant amount of people joining and running and winning. That would be maybe a way to eliminate conservatism, at least as extreme as it is today, and make it much, much better. That'll put some pressure. That'll put some pressure on the Democratic Party to actually probably go well. No, actually, because the Democratic Party would become left or become right-leaning. I mean, they are right-leaning, and then the new climate activist Republican Party would be the left. How does that votes Republican primary? Does she have anyone to vote for? That's even worth looking at. Of course not. Okay. So how does she look at voting then? What? What's the gain there? Okay, harm reduction. Okay. Yeah, just voting for the least offensive person, and then, yeah, okay. All right. That makes sense. Okay, cool. Makes sense. And that's a lot of the reason why people vote Democrat too. Harm reduction. Actually, technically it's harm perpetuation, but yeah. All right. Okay, next. November 18th. This is from Professor Jem Bendel, strategist and educator on social change, focused on deep adaptation to societal breakdown. This is something I need to look at too. I've read a little bit of this, not as much of it as I need to, but deep adaptation sounds pretty interesting. Capitalism versus climate justice. No thoughts on my first and last experience of the climate COP. In the run-up to COP27 climate conference, The Economist magazine declared it has become possible to limit global warming to an average of 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Yep. Aren't many analysts of the relevant science have said as much for a few years. You were dismissed as too negative, and so ideas on what to do were therefore marginalized. Sadly, warming beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius means that climate change will become far more damaging to societies. Even worse, due to a range of amplifying feedbacks that are impossible to have certainty about, no one can credibly claim anymore that human actions to cut and draw down carbon, while still important, will certainly work to stop or reverse the changes. When people take that situation to heart, it can challenge the societies and systems that brought us to this point. For many, it is a fundamentally radicalizing realization. Although The Economist cited my views in one of their articles, rather predictably, it didn't provide space for the kind of criticism of capitalism and the global order that can ensue. So, Yeah, one of the things on our models, which is problematic, is that the models we have, they're nowhere near as accurate as they need to be. Like with a lot of the projections that climate scientists make, things are happening so much faster than they can predict. Like some things are happening 50 to 100 years earlier than they expected them to. So honestly, where scientists currently predict us to be is we're 50 years ahead of that. I mean, we're 50 years farther into whatever they can predict, if not more. So that's something they really need to concentrate on. I mean, some will use that as a way to discredit the science, but it's about our predictability, and our predictability in the way we're going about it isn't anywhere near as conservative or accurate as it needs to be. So the best thing we need to do is be as conservative as possible in our attacks on this. Another major challenge to the establishment from the latest climate science is the analysis of just how bad our environmental conditions will be in the years ahead. Instead, we see people looking for ways to stay positive in the face of an unfolding disaster. A widely read essay in the New York Times did just that. It promoted the narrative that although the current situation is worse than was predicted, the same people are now predicting it probably won't get as bad as they previously thought. What? On closer inspection, I discovered that the scientific basis for such claims is marginal to non-existent. Okay, there we go. But there is some inevitable further warming from existing CO2 equivalent concentrations, and human emissions have been tracking the worst case scenarios mapped by the experts. Right, we're tracking, it's what is called RCP 8.5, which is approximately a 4.6 degree increase. Some numbers I've seen recently is that we're headed by 2100 by a 2 to 3 degree increase by 2100. This year is set to see the highest global emissions ever. So how do some mainstream journalists arrive at their semi-positive narratives? Clearly, some smart people seem to prefer computers to reality. Some also enjoy their status as scientists, but ditch a normal extrapolation of trends to use more convenient numbers about future technology and climate policies, despite those policies not being applied. I also hear some say they are worried about the rest of us becoming shocked at the situation and outraged about not learning the truth until now, as they should be. Result is collective lying, and not only in the 6 official languages of the UN, as climate activist and UN youth advisor Sophia Kiani told the delegates in the plenary. I've been warned of how climate conferences were a charade, but nevertheless went to Sharm el-Sheikh as a posthumous thank you to Stuart Scott. In 2018, he helped fund Greta Thunberg to attend COP24, where she organized some of her press conferences. This year, the new team at the channel he created, Facing Future TV, asked if I would help arrange and co-host some panels. Stuart had been the first person to persuade me to appear on video to talk about my paper called Deep Adaptation. When he was dying of cancer, we also fought to put the deep adaptation videos back online. After they were unlisted by some colleagues who wanted to control the narrative for their own ends. I knew that Stuart regarded attending COP as an important moment for truth-telling, and I respected how he had helped to bring wider attention to Greta and others. So I accepted the offer from the new team to profile some people and views that are marginalized in the climate arena because they challenge the systems of power that are the root cause of climate chaos. My aim would be for more people to hear that a deregulated and over-financialized global capitalism make matters worse even as we enter an era disrupted by global heating and ecological breakdown. Because I was not attending with any illusions that any illusions that more than vague words and soon-to-be unfulfilled promises would be forthcoming from the official processes, I would not end up feeling dashed by the end of the fortnight. I'd only heard this past year or so about the diseases that are being released because of permafrost melting. Yep, I don't recall the past being mentioned as warming. Yeah, they had talked about it because it's a huge thing. The issue with the permafrost in the Arctic melting has two primary problems. First is, there's bacteria and viruses and stuff that will be released that will create pandemics, and then also there's a bunch of methane, which is significantly more insulating than carbon dioxide is. There's a lot of that being released into the air too from what is trapped in the ice there. Yeah, it's a big deal, and it's something we know is coming, and it's going to be hell because we're going to get diseases coming from the south as things warm up there, and then diseases and stuff coming from the north as well. So it's going to be a consistent 1-2 punch of pandemic after pandemic once the Arctic permafrost has melted enough, and it's going to be horrific. Now, when that's going to start happening, I don't know, but maybe probably in the next 100 years. By 2100, we'll probably start seeing that stuff, if not sooner, depending on how fast it's heating. Because the Arctic is heating significantly faster than they were ever expecting. So yeah, it's not going to be good. Not going to be good. Yes. Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's been heating up. Arctic heating. I spell right? Arctic heating frost. A just okay, global warming. Okay, and from life very long ago. Arctic is warming at twice the global average rate since 2000, according to NOAA. Okay, so you kind of see here the Arctic warming more than double global average. So here, yeah, starting about 2000, it's higher by 3 degrees higher than the average. No, 2 degrees higher than the average. Yes, I saw that. Yep. It's pretty amazing that they can do that. Just life, at that scale, can just survive. I mean, tardigrades are amazing, and viruses too. They can survive. Hopefully this won't be another insane. Yeah. Well, I was just having this conversation with myself, talking about these sorts of things that science is going to end up, whenever there's something to study, they will always want to study it, regardless of the potential consequences. And science is going to do it. Someone will do it, one way or the other. So the best thing we can do for some of the unethical things, I mean, there's some things we can't do due to ethics and stuff. So yes, outlawing that. But the far majority of it, someone's going to do this anyhow. So let's just find the least problematic way to do these things, make sure that everyone, people are safe and the environment is safe. And this would be one of those things where, reviving that 50,000-year-old virus would be one of those where I would be super careful to not let that sucker get released, because that would be hell. Okay, let's go permafrost melting. Yep. Okay, here's news.un. Well, it's a thing. And it's something to definitely be worried about. Yeah, we read an article a month ago talking about how Alaska, it's thawing very quickly. There are houses and buildings that are, the permafrost there is thawing, and buildings and stuff are starting to sink. So it's happening in Alaska and it's happening up there. It's at very quick rates, and we really need to start taking a look, doing those studies, and see how our country and infrastructure is going to be affected, and start making sure our infrastructure can survive that now, because once it gets started, it's going to go at a very, very fast rate, and we're not going to be able to keep up. And then the bodies are going to start piling up, and it's going to be bad. All right, total climate honesty is needed. In my first speech at the conference, I went straight to the culture of self-serving lies, as Sophia Kiani had spoken about. I called for attention to what can be termed the net zero paradox. This is where progress towards ending fossil fuel use will also reduce the aerosol masking effect that arises from burning dirty fuels. That effect is estimated globally to be keeping temperatures down by 0.5 degrees Celsius. It is a rapid effect, and so ending the masking can raise temperatures in a matter of weeks. Dr. Yi Tao presented data from the pandemic lockdowns to reveal that large urban areas in hotter countries experience significant spikes in temperatures due to a localized reduction on the masking effect. Therefore, he highlights how success in ending fossil fuels will have a nasty sting in the tail for poor people living in such cities, one that could be deadly. He presented his work on the potential solution, MIR, that would offer low-cost and low-carbon cooling technologies. It is a form of solar radiation management that is very localized and not posing concerns for wider weather disruption. The net zero paradox represents a near-term effect, so why is this not prioritized? Professional classes who participate in these conferences and the associated professions are not the kind of folks who will die from the temperature spikes in hot or cities that will result from the policies they are discussing. Right, it's that first world privilege, that systemic and structural racism inherent to these sorts of things, that the people who are affected most by climate change don't have a seat at the table. If they were, do you think they would ignore it as an off message inconvenience? Hopefully the talk by Dr. Yitao will bring more attention to this issue, and then his and similar initiatives to try to help ameliorate the problem will finally get some funding. Wishful thinking. In the same session, I launched and swore the scholar's oath to the future. Okay. What is that? University of Cumbria. Symbology and an oath of renewed commitment. Future is bleak. Scholars from around the world have known for years that trends are the wrong direction. Myself, my fellow scout. Okay, this is cool. I'll throw that in here too, so you take a look at it. Already endorsed by 165 scholars in over 30 countries, this is an apology letter to the younger generations for our past caution and a commitment to be bolder in our efforts in the future. We also express our intent to engage younger generations more explicitly in our future work. That doesn't just mean engaging those who have been signed up by UN agencies or speaker agencies, but engaging young people in our everyday lives. So one of the ways they could do this is by just having a TikTok account, making content for a TikTok account or for a YouTube account, and just start sharing it on TikTok. Little pieces of it here, little pieces of it there, and longer stuff. Because the situation is not about speeches at conferences, it is about the increased costs and disruptions that are being experienced locally that younger people must live with. In my own situation, this means I will be reaching out to local students about an agroforestry project I am setting up to enable some more local resilience to the coming disruptions. Now, I appreciate people doing this. I get it. I have no problems with it, and it needs to be done. But hyper-localized projects aren't going to do anything in the long term. It's not going to affect climate change. Unless you can do it on, thousands of acres or something like that, then it might help. Things need to be done on national scales. If the national and state governments aren't leading, we're fucked. Now, obviously, here in the U.S., they're not, because there's no profit to be made in by saving humanity from extinction. But it needs to be done at the large scale. Make a difference. Capitalism versus climate justice. The next panel I co-hosted was on the topic of climate justice, where we heard from 2 women activists from the global south. Speaking as a woman of indigenous heritage, Mexican Zia Bastida offered a critique of how modern societies relate to nature. It is similar to the kind of critique I had known about since I was a teenager, but felt uncomfortable with embracing, despite its obvious truth. I don't want to push away the wisdom anymore. Next, Dr. Stella Nyambura Mabao from Kenya explained the need for climate justice to emerge as a result of the greater knowledge and mobilization of poor people in the global south. The message from those of us from the global north was clear. We could find more ways to directly help activists in the south. Yeah, and again, I talked about all this stuff in my policies. Oh. Okay, this is her butt over here too. Watch that. Wrapped up this panel with a speech on the corporate capture of climate agenda, both in the past, which means it has achieved very little, and now where we are beginning to see a global disaster capitalism, where businesses are seeking subsidies from the state for their various schemes. This is the big issue that has been avoided for decades. So when Al Gore took to the stage to express anger at inaction, I was curious. When he claimed a lack of impact on the climate crisis meant we have a credibility problem, I thought, you don't just have a credibility problem, you have a capitalism consumer culture problem. Yep, and said so in my speech. Having been engaged in environmental issues since the early 1990s, my God, I had some historical context for that comment. I knew what Vice President of the U.S., Al Gore, caved to his domestic polluter and financier interests so that the U.S. delegation to the UNFCCC stopped the world from moving towards an agreement on national carbon taxes. Instead, they got the world to agree to pursue complex and experimental carbon cap and trade systems, which are garbage, that provided new opportunities for polluters and financiers to make money and delivered minimal changes in emissions. Exactly. Pointing this out is definitely not to complain about a specific man's character, but to show the problem is the system of capitalism, which goes unacknowledged by the people, even when they recognize failure. Perhaps unaware of this climate history and the role of capitalism in ruining the global climate response, the audience offered a hearty applause for Mr. Gore. I found it quite strange that despite it being so obvious that the cause of failure of humanity to bend the emission curve over the past 30 years because of the dominant expansionist logic of global capitalism that is so widely ignored. It was the focus of my answers when interviewed by Inside Climate News, where I explained that cops had achieved any unhelpful form of success for incumbent power by keeping climate issues away from trade and finance rule. Okay, yep. At times where some glimmers of reality and sanity in the conference hall. At times there were some glimmers of reality and sanity in the conference hall. The Colombian president, Gustavo Petro, gave a speech where he made it very clear we can't tackle climate separately from the exploitive and extractive global systems that serve the rich. Yeah, and that's 100% correct. And that's, my policies are all about fixing that. You know, Grizzly Bear, you've heard me bitch about the previous COPs and what we need to do, right? The loss and damage and sending trillions to the global south. That's 100% correct. It was a sentiment stated in less eloquent terms by Venezuela's President Maduro. Many were surprised to see Mr. President Emmanuel Macron suddenly appear friendly with them. Could he be interested in his views on capitalism and the climate? Or perhaps he was just wanting new sources of fossil fuels as the European energy crisis arrive at that awkward moment we call winter. Despite Petro's speech, which had the additional benefit of upsetting the journalists at Breitbart, fuck them, it's clear that nothing in the UNFCCC process will ever tackle the economic drivers of humanity's self-destruction. Yeah, if you're not saying capitalism is the problem, then you're not even starting to talk about the solution. Not adapting is a worse failure. Because decades of failure mean the consequences are now arriving hard and fast in the third panel I co-hosted. Hard and fast. In the third panel I co-hosted, we focused. Yeah, that needs to be a period there. Because decades of failure mean the consequences are now arriving hard and fast. In the third panel I co-hosted, we focused on climate adaptation. Video coming soon. My co-host Reyes Salter noted how many green projects seem to be more about corporate profit than helping communities cope with the impacts of climate change. Of course, because they are the ones with the money who fund everything. IPCC lead author Dr. Lisa Schipper joined us to explain how many projects can backfire by not having a sensible assessment how extreme the problems are already becoming. She gave the example of new seawalls to protect lands, but then prevent water draining into the sea after a flood. Dr. Diane Burumabao shared on this panel as well, this time on how corporatist ideology has been shaping the notion of climate-smart agriculture in ways that undermine rural community resilience. Yeah, again, when I talk about agriculture, we have to be concentrating on vertical agriculture. Not vertical agriculture, you're fucked, because the climate's getting hotter, and as climate gets hotter, more and more places you're just not going to be able to grow stuff. And we're seeing that now all throughout the world. We think they would decide it was a better idea to send money to the global south due to the effects of climate change, so those people can remain in their countries longer, thus delaying time for when they can and will. Yeah, you would, but here's the thing about that. I mean, obviously, you and I, we're talking sense, right? But for them, it's about corporate profit. I mean, they don't give a flying fuck about the global south. They can all fucking die as far as all these corporations are concerned. Because all they have to do is they've got the most powerful militaries in the world, stand there at the border and keep them from coming here. And then eventually they all die due to starvation and heat and all that sort of stuff, while us in the global south are sitting just fine. It's just, it's a negative externality that they don't care about. It's just something that our militaries will deal with. And actually, last year, that's what Nancy Pelosi said. As a corporate, well, it is. I say a corporal plutoligarchy, right? I mean, yeah, I don't say there's a difference between them because corporations own the government, right? It's the United States government is all the corporations in the world in a single trench coat. Yeah, totally. Yep. And yeah, so the government, so last COP, Nancy Pelosi answered the question to Abby Martin, saying pretty much that as climate change happens, we need our military. That's how they're going to deal with the problems with the military, not by actually preventing the problems. There's no money to be made by the corporations by solving problems, doing good things. Hearing that, I realized I want to keep hearing from people who work at the grassroots in the global south. I also realized how, from their urban Western prejudice, Some eco-modernists might call us primitivists for thinking that the future should involve helping people keep working their land. There very well might be. There very well might be. There will be too many people to stop. The issue, in some ways, yes, but I also no, because many of them will die of heat stroke, and many of them will die of starvation, and many will die to disease. And then many will die due to violence in these countries as people are rioting, and the authoritarian regimes that the United States has installed in all the countries in the South, in the global South, will end up murdering their people, right? So it'll be yes, you're right, but also no, because people are something we can let die, so it doesn't hurt our profit. We'll see. We're gonna see it in our lifetime. It's already starting. I recommend reading Stella's writings on these topics, as they offer such a stark contrast to what we hear from Western commentators on climate. The panel was the first time that I mentioned deep adaptation as an ethos and framework at a UN event. If you didn't know, that ethos and framework is about seeking to reduce harm and save more of the natural world, despite anticipating the breakdown of most modern societies in the near term. It's also the topic of a smaller dialogue with a handful of people in a circle organized by the IASS Potsdam. That experience once again revealed that people are ready to talk about these difficult scenarios if they aren't just going through the motions on environmental issues as expected by their employer. After session 1, I thought it is a pity that the backlash against people who anticipated bad to worst case scenarios had kept the ethos, practice, and community of deep adaptation hidden from so many people. A painful acceptance that misrepresentational mud does indeed stick and can be used to marginalize people and agendas is why I recently made the time to write some publications that carry articles with misrepresentations of my work. Both the New Internationalist and Open Democracy have published corrections and clarifications as a result, the former indicating that it had been misled by the latter. However, years have been lost due to the divisive and misleading anti-doomer efforts by some scholars and journalists. Yeah, and this is, their corporate media, most likely bought and paid for by fossil fuels. Climate agenda must be reclaimed from the elites. They need to stop calling them the elites. They need to stop calling them the predatory class. How much more do we have of this? Oh my God, this is huge. Dear God. All right, so we're not going to get through all this. I didn't realize how big this was. Oh, so take care of them. Yeah, kill in their own country before. Yeah. Oh yeah. That's what will end up happening. I mean, because like in Central South America and Africa, once people start, really struggling and suffering, they'll rise up and they'll riot and protest, and then we've all seen pretty much every single country in the world and their authoritarian police and military just, pushing people away and or murdering them in cold blood because they had the nerve to stand up. Yeah, that's, the dictators we've installed will take care of a lot of it for us. But then, refugees will start coming up north, but then the U.S. military will be at the border at some point and will prevent them from getting it as much as possible, and then just watch them die right there at the border, just like the kids in cages at the border, right? That hasn't changed. AOC was crying there when it was Trump, but now that it's Biden, it's what's it now? It's not kids in cages. It's what did she call it? Right, far fewer will be allowed to leave. Yep, that's exactly right. Yep. You reduce the population internally into countries when they start revolting, and they'll be dying from heat and disease, and then there'll be less that will get here. Yep, 100%. Change. It went from kids in cages at the border to detention facilities, right? That's it? Okay, good. Yeah. And it's the significant amount of sadness I feel for how much we've lost with the squad becoming a member of the Borg. You know, I had in my blog that I love AOC with all my progressive feels. She was very inspiring, and it was just amazing. You know, her coming on the scene and the way she speaks, it was so inspiring and gave me hope. And then once she won, then she became one of the Borg, and it's just sad. Yeah, that's exactly the sort of thing that I worry about when running for office. That once you become part of the system, those people that you would attack and because they're horrible human beings, like Nancy Pelosi, now become people you work with, and so you lose that objectivity and lose that rage, and now she's Mama Bear. She taught the propaganda. She wasn't expecting it, you know. Well, I would be the same way, honestly. I mean, I believe what I believe. My policies are there. That's what I believe. I know full well if I was elected into the Senate, jack shit would get done. There's no way in hell anything of value to the human race is going to get done because there's no money to be made in it. And one person who's just pissing and moaning all the time, which is what I would be doing, isn't going to change anything because I have no power. So, you know, if I were to get into the Senate, that's all I would do. I would sit there and I would, you know, figure out how this is going to fuck people over, and I would just be bitching about it all the time. That blog posts and then videos and speaking at places. See, they're going to fuck you this way. I have no one to work with because no one actually cares. Because they're not getting paid by their corporate owners to actually fix things. They're getting paid to make their corporations money. So, you know, they may have been very genuine. All the squad, AOC and the rest of the squad, may have been very genuine about that. But the moment you become part of the system, everything changes because, again, you lose that objectivity. If Nancy says you all newbies are going to economics, oh yes, economics, yep, you would go yes, yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, that is true. That's 100% true. 100% true. You know, part of the way they go through that transition process or the indoctrination process, right? Yeah, they can definitely get them doing that, but all of them should know better. I mean, AOC was a promoter of MMT. I mean, she knows better about all the economic stuff. I mean, she knows better. A lot of them know better, and giving into it and believing it doesn't make any sense from that standpoint. I think it more has to do with once they become a part of that system of control, that they get to know the people, then it's not just, you know, Nancy Pelosi is horrible, Mitch McConnell's horrible, because now you've met their family and you've talked to them and you've had drinks together, and it becomes no longer this, yeah, oh yes, exactly. Yeah, and there's this level of awe with her because she's been here this whole time and she's older and wiser. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it's, I imagine for AOC and the rest of the squad, it's very difficult to maintain that rage, maintain that objectivity when you get to know them as people. Because it's no longer this, you know, previously it was just this face that you rage against, and now it's, you've had dinner at their house. So it all goes to hell in a handbasket after that. Yeah, that's the thing I worry about running for office, losing my rage and my objectivity and becoming part of the system. It would take a very special sort of politician to, oh, it is. Oh, thank you. Special sort of politician that can maintain that, because fighting back that peer pressure and getting used to the system and that sort of a thing. All right. Do you have any last minute comments before we go? If you want to read the rest of this, you can. We're probably got halfway through it, maybe. It's a lot longer than I thought it was. What do I have to do after this? I'll take a look at some of those videos and stuff after this. No, it's perfect. That's what this is for. This is exactly what I want. That's what, streaming is about, right? Me here babbling and you guys talking back so we can learn together. That's exactly what I want. You're the bomb. Here, let me. Hey, Girly Bear. I'm a fan. You're exactly what we want. You're exactly what we streamers need. Yes, thank you. Thank you for gifting me with your time. I really do appreciate it. Have a great week. Stay COVID free. See you guys later.